Moosin here with your Visions of Orgrimmar 8-mask horrific run walkthrough. As promised in our Stormwind video, here is your follow-up video to assist you in completing your transmog and mount goals and conquering this challenge mode instance. However, if you haven't seen the Stormwind 8-mask run yet, I recommend you go there first, as I do talk a lot about the general buff mechanics for horrific visions that make this easier. Now, speaking of those buffs, we do have the addition of the Gift of the Titans buff now this week, which is going to give you 60% haste, as well as, more importantly, an immunity to the sanity loss effects for 20 seconds. Though, just keep in mind, the eternal cooldown of this ability is estimated between 60 to 100 seconds. With the addition of this buff, I have made a quick and simple weak aura that you can import that gives you a visual cue on the screen of when that buff actually triggers, while remaining hidden out of combat. It's nothing crazy, but guaranteed to help. You can find it below in the description. Furthermore, with the buffs, since it is a different instance, I will go ahead and put up the coordinates here for the other mini bosses that will provide you with various stat bonuses similar to Stormwind. Lastly, before I dive into the Guardian talent build for this run, I'll be playing clips in the background of both Thrall and Boomy DPSing bosses. I know we're all approaching this with different item levels which change damage output, so I want to make sure everyone has the tools to succeed if they're having a hard time killing the elites quick enough. To help with that, I've included 2 DPS Convoke builds in the description, one for Thrall and one for Boomy. Use whichever you're more comfortable with. You can swap to one of them before pulling a boss, blow your cooldowns and hit Convoke, then swap back to Guardian after they're dead. It's a simple and effective way to push through any DPS checks. Big shout out to Thrallite for reminding me of this trick. It can be a real game changer, especially with varied gear setups. Now onto the main Guardian build. I didn't go too deep into this in the last video, so here are a few quick notes. In these challenges, surviving as Guardian is very easy, so this build focuses on maximizing damage. Their key rotation tip to this is to drop combat between pulls, then make sure your first global after entering combat is Mangle to trigger Ravage. Fill remaining globals with Mangle on cooldown as well as Thrash, and be sure to use every Ravage proc. Other than that, save Incarn for your elite pulls, and if you're having trouble killing a boss to lower damage, I recommend using Heart of the Wild to give your physical damage a 20% boost. Other than this, the challenge is relatively straightforward, and I only did it with the Mark of the Wild because, unlike the original Visions with the addition of the Nemesis Mask and the Elite Sanity Tribute, there's just no rush. Just focus on timing Gammon and avoid standing in bad. Let alone, most importantly, if you do get bad RNG, you can easily recover without much effort, as you will see later in this 8-mask run. So jumping on into it, we are going to be starting our run going into stealth and sticking to the left side here to avoid the mobs that can see stealth. We're going to do a drive-by on the hut over here to where we'll see the little potion that will let us know what is the bad potion, and it looks like it's going to be purple. So now that we know purple is going to be the bad potion, we'll want to collect all the other colors. We're going to make our way up here and off to the left. We're going to zigzag a bit and open the door. Now, since we haven't triggered Gift of the Titans yet, we know after one of the first kills it's going to trigger. So we're going to take advantage of that and drag that buff into the elite. Any opportunity you get taking Gift of the Wild into an elite, you should, as you will find it very beneficial. Don't be afraid to wait for the eternal timer to drop on the buff, then pull a small group to trigger the buff before going into any of the elites. So with this first elite, his primary ability is going to be Surging Fists. Just try to aim him where he's going to hit a wall, so you're not chasing him around like crazy. Then after he does that, he's going to cast Decimator, an ability that shoots a missile in your direction to dodge, and be sure to kite the elite away during the cast to avoid the missile, as it does return to wherever the elite is standing, doing large sanity loss. Once dead, we'll continue into our first zone, which is going to be Valley of Wisdom. Now, initially my game plan was to trigger Gift of the Titans early, so the idea was to proc it off these dudes before pulling the mini boss. Unfortunately, I got lazy and stood in bad, so you're going to see me get feared off of here and pull the boss, which is not the end of the world, but not optimal. This does elaborate on how forgiving the instance is now that we have Gift of the Titans. Eventually it procs here, but let's talk about this boss and why you want to try and proc Gift before pulling that. So with this dude, his main ability is unavoidable, and that's what really makes him the challenge. He's going to grab you and throw you, and you're going to take sanity loss with the impact. No matter what you do, you can't avoid it, and he has so much health, can very easily happen quite a few times. Now, the boss also does have a disrupting roar, but as Guardian, you really don't have to worry about that, as you shouldn't be casting out of form. While I continue to clear this area, I do want to rehash the Nemesis masks and bring your attention to the counter in the top middle of the screen, letting you know when Gammon will next spawn. Speaking of Gammon, he is a lot easier to deal with than Hogger because he does less damage. However, he does have a stun you have to be aware of. Back to the zone, you are just going to clear out the mobs to fill the meter to summon the final boss, and similar to the previous visions, you're going to see the Dominators here, which cast Touch of the Abyss that needs to be kicked. So if you see them in a pack, be sure to target them first to kill them or be able to kick them. And in particular for this zone, avoid pulling the group here at the altar, as there are 3 Dominators and could easily go sideways, and you really don't need them for the percent, let alone the path that we're doing. The second mini boss here in the area is also pretty straightforward. If you don't have your travel form keybound already, I would certainly recommend doing it. I myself love using the add-on OP, which allows me to use my mouse to quickly shift between forms. You'll probably see a pop-up here or from time to time while doing this run, and it's just depending on where my mouse is located within the screen. When I press the keybind, it dictates which form I switch into. Now, this guy is going to do 2 primary abilities, the first of which is going to be Sanguine Residue, which is a spiral on the ground that doesn't go away. So as you start seeing him cast that, you want to start moving immediately. Likewise, you're going to see him cast Visceral Fluid, and as soon as you are seeing him cast that, make sure you jump into Travel Form, Roar, or even Sprint, as its sanity hit happens very quickly. So just be wary of the pink schmank on the ground. Rinse and repeat this guy, and we'll have cleared the area and spawn the final boss. Going into the final boss here, you see me run in as I have Gift, but I would say the best place to tank this dude is right there in the fork of the road, so you don't have to worry about getting too close to the edge and pulling the adds below. In particular, this boss is going to do a couple different things. The first is going to be Defile Ground, which is a frontal ability, followed up by Unleash Corruption, which is going to spawn some adds on the ground. And then his final ability will be Rings of Chaos, which are balls that will spawn in a ring around the boss to keep you in melee. Obviously, don't stand in bad, don't touch the balls, and keep a close eye on what might be spawning below your feet. Realistically, you just need to pick going counterclockwise or clockwise and staying in melee to avoid the ball. Despite how big he is, he does fall over very easy, and even the adds, when killed, do not buff him. We are now leaving the Valley of Wisdom and entering the Valley of Spirits. I'm going to speed up this portion of the video as there isn't anything special about this zone, nor is it challenging or have weird gimmicks, which does bring up a good talking point. Both of these first zones are easier ones to do, so if you're struggling in the other 2 zones, the Drag as well as the Valley of Honor, I'd recommend doing those first as it will help you practice, but most importantly save you time, as those are the 2 zones most likely to kill you, so knock them out of the way before burning 15-20 minutes of these 2 easy zones just to have you start over in the others. Sure, it's not the most direct route, but like I said, this challenge is no longer about rushing and you aren't losing anything, but maybe a couple extra minutes doing the other path first. Back to the Valley of Spirits, you're just going to make your way through clearing the totems, and when you get to the last boss here, it is pretty straightforward. He's going to have 2 abilities, first of which is Hopelessness for 1, and then Tidal Waves that need to be avoided. When he does cast Hopelessness, he's going to separate you from your spirit, and you have to go touch the spirit ball as it flies away from your body, all while avoiding the waves. Going from here to the drag, we're going to take this back path, which I'm going to fast forward because I got distracted and went AFK. And speaking of being distracted and how forgiving visions are, I royally whiffed this first elite because my wife is right, I can't multitask. Things to know about this first elite in the drag is he has 2 abilities to watch out for. Orb of Annihilation, where it'll create a spiral on the ground and bounce forward for you to avoid. And he will also cast a Frontal Cone Dark Force, which won't hit you for sanity, but can push you into bad. I'd also add that for this boss, to try and pull him closer to the front of the area to avoid pulling the adds behind him. Once dead, you want to be sure to talk to Grona as she gets up off the floor, otherwise you won't be able to unlock the final boss of the zone without her hoops to jump through. And when done assisting her, we can talk about this zone's final boss, who is one of the harder encounters. The Inquisitor here has 2 main abilities, one of which is going to be Void Torrent, which is a channeled ability where you can kite around in a circle or semicircle, avoiding the projectiles. I'd recommend using your Roar for the first one, and depending on how fast your DPS is, switching to your Sprint for the following or even Travel form. Just make sure that you are kiting around the circle, otherwise it is a big chunk of sanity loss as well as a stun when hit. If things do get squirrely here, you can technically dodge in between them, but it is not recommended. His other ability is going to be Cries of the Void. It is a DPS check where you have to beat the shield down before the cast goes off, and you take sanity loss. As of the final zone here in the Valley of Honor, it is probably going to be your shortest zone, however has one of the hardest boss encounters. So once we come in, we're going to go ahead and kill Misha here near the door and not pull the other adds behind her. Be sure not to stand in the fear, and also you want to not stand in the green puddles when they drop. Clearing up this combat, the nice thing about this zone is you can largely stealth skip all of it, with the caveat of making sure that you line up killing some mobs to trigger Gift of the Titans going into the final boss. To get there in stealth, we're going to weave around all of this and head into the water. We're going to skip all of this, and we're going to aggro this pack in the back. Honestly, with this pool, I would do Bark Skin into Rager the Sleeper beforehand, just to be on the safe side, because you do get stunned and can take a good amount of damage here. With this all cleared up, unfortunately, I did not proc my Gift of the Titans, so I want to fast forward it here as I got bored and really wanted to just kill everything as I was trying to figure out what the timer was for Gift of Titans to proc. But just remember, it is about 60 to 100 seconds of an internal cooldown, so you could really just wait right here by the door for a period of time, and then go touch one of these dead bodies to trigger Gift of the Titans off of a single ad. Rexxar, like I said, is the hardest side boss for this vision, and you have a lot to manage or dodge. When combat starts, he will throw traps on the ground to avoid, but your biggest priority is going to be the boars. When they begin to join combat, you should be focusing on killing the boars before you kill Rexxar, because each one of those quills, when it goes off, is going to be 150 sanity loss. Mind you, going into this with Gift of the Titans, you aren't going to take the sanity loss, but when it drops, it is going to hurt, and it's better to know the mechanics just in case things go sideways. It is a note, when the boars do come out, they will knock you back, so make sure that you position yourself to where you won't be knocked back into a trap. So once you kill all the boars, they won't respawn. However, you still have to dodge the traps that are on the ground, and once the boars are dead, and depending on how long Rexxar is up, he will do another cast, causing a Stampede of Shaw, which hitting any of those will once again cost you a good amount of sanity. So dodge, duck, dip, dive, and dodge, and you'll be good to go on your way to Thrall. Fast forwarding once again to make the video shorter and continue providing you with info, I'm going to start the video again here where I'm waiting at a sanity potion and letting the internal cooldown for Gift reset. So starting into Thrall's room, I'm clearing these last 2 guys to proc Gift, and unfortunately catch the fear as I was hoping to range it. However, it doesn't really matter as there is a delay in the door opening to Thrall's room, so no time is lost, and most importantly, I keep my kick as well as my in-cap roar to use on the boars inside. Running right in, our first priority is to kill the boars and prevent their casts. Once dead, they won't respawn. As of Thrall's other abilities, he will have Defiled Ground, a frontal cone which will drain your sanity as well as stun you, Hopelessness, which should proc at 80 and 40%, Cries of the Void, which is the DPS shield to burn through, and of course his standard abilities, which are Seismic Slam, a frontal that will also stun you, and Surging Darkness, which he'll jump into the middle of the room and will either fill the center of the room or the outer ring of the room. I use the carpet in the middle of the room as a visual indicator and hover close to the edge as it's a good pivot point to jump in or out of either, depending on what part of the room it triggers. Now, all you have to do is power through, and congratulations, you've got this. So there you have it, your 8 mask walkthrough for Horrific Visions of Orgrimmar, granting you a fantastic mount as well as some achievement points. Now, if you really appreciated this informative survival guide, let alone Guardian videos or anything else that I do, please like and subscribe, as it helps me out a whole bunch, especially if you haven't already, as I do enjoy this challenge-based content to create helpful videos. But that's going to be it for me this video. This has been Moosin, and I wish you all of luck in completing this challenge. I'll see you on the next one.